Good morning. I would like to welcome my listeners and viewers in the United States and all around the world. I am Vince Rocco, and it is Tuesday morning here in New York City, so let's go behind the headlines and get the real story. But first, this is Talking New York Real Estate. Up front today, Charm School. Right, Charm School for real estate agents refers to specialized training programs designed to enhance the interpersonal skills, professional demeanor, and overall charm of real estate professionals. These programs typically focus on teaching agents how to build rapport with clients, communicate effectively, and project confidence and trustworthiness. Charm School may include instruction on etiquette, presentation skills, active listening, negotiation tactics, and conflict resolution strategies. Real estate agents learn to navigate various client interactions and situations with grace and charisma. The goal of Charm School is to equip agents with the charm and sophistication necessary to excel in their careers, foster long-term client relationships, and stand out in the competitive market. But unfortunately, in New York City, this type of schooling or training doesn't exist. As I always say, it is up to you in how you want to build your business, create success for yourself, and at the same time build a brand and reputation that clients and the new prospects that you're trying to find and farm and cultivate in your daily endeavors. Not easy, but imperative to stay in the industry and continue on with much more success. We will discuss, and we will have all that and so much more as Talking New York Real Estate gets underway on this Tuesday morning. And in the news this morning, consumers continue to show that defying the odds and keeping spending up has been proven in the better than expected March retail sales reports. Retail sales are up 4% over the past year. This data is not adjusted for inflation, which rose 3.5% during that time, so the gain is more like 0.5%. But total sales came in at seasonally adjusted $709 billion. The biggest increase in sales was posted by internet sales, no shock there, up 2.7%, and gasoline stations up 2.1%. Gas stations helped by the sharp rise in gas prices in the past 2 months. It's great news that consumers are spending more, and they account for 70% of the GDP. The first quarter GDP report should be very strong with recent surge in hiring and spending, but there is a bad side to this, and that's the struggle with inflation. The Fed is already having a hard time getting inflation down to the 2% target, and recent economic data shows it's only going to get harder. After 2 strong months, sales of existing homes fell sharply in March due to rising mortgage rates. Remember that at the end of 2023, rates fell over 1%, leading to a jump in closings in January and February. But so far in 2024, rates have pushed higher, climbing to 7.1%, as I said last week, for the first time since last November. Inventory rose 4.7% last month to 1.11 million homes. Even with higher inventory, prices were still 4.8% higher than a year ago. And while mortgage rates have moved in the wrong direction recently, they are still almost 1% lower than the average rates over the past 50 years. Also remember that while the Fed won't be cutting rates anytime soon, that doesn't mean mortgage rates won't change. Let's see how all that works out. Major earthquakes are rare for New York City, but small ones do occur, and for some researchers think New York City is due for a magnitude 5 or higher in its future. It's important to know that earthquakes are not covered by standard insurance policies. For that reason, the recent quake in New Jersey that rattled New York City should be a wake-up call to learn about your building's insurance coverage and what may be missing according to the experts. Earthquake insurance covers damage from shaking and cracking, and coverage is usually done as a supplemental policy that kicks in after damage at the building exceeds your policy's deductible. And one never knows how Mother Nature will treat a major earthquake in New York City. In fact, it could be very devastating indeed. And finally, for all the Swifties out there, the Taylor Swift's new album is here and called The Tortured Poets Department. It is a double album, and it dropped last Friday in digital version. The singer's 11th studio album arrived at midnight on April 19th, and it was swiftly followed up 2 hours later with a drop of 15 additional songs. It's a 2 a.m. surprise. The Tortured Poets Department is a secret double album, the singer said in a social media post. I'd written so much tortured poetry in the past 2 years and wanted to share it all with you. So here's the second installment called The Anthology with 15 extra songs. And now the story isn't just mine anymore, it's all of yours. And we wish this brilliant singer and songwriter much success with all of it. With me today are John Hudak from Official, Jessica Silver from Douglas Elliman, Patrick Mills from Core Real Estate, and Mark Friedman from Brown Harris Stevens.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
Okay, everybody, we are back. So, as I said in the intro, we're going to talk about Charm School for Real Estate Agents. And I have to chuckle, and I was chuckling as I wrote this program last week, because if you've been in real estate as long as I have, 22 years, and if you've been in real estate, for 2 weeks, you can kind of feel like there's a lack of charm out there sometimes with real estate agents. I mean, does it exist? No. However, we try our best to be as charming as we possibly can, and the 4 people that were selected to be on this panel today are certainly charming, and we'll get into all of that in a minute. So, Mr. Friedman, Mark Friedman, I'm going to start with you. How do you define charm and charisma when most agents in this town are as friendly as a wet noodle?
Well, I would say that defining charm is really just being natural and kind to the people that you're speaking to. I think in any sales job, you have to listen. And if you're not listening to the people, you can't actually be charming to them because you have no idea what they're saying. So you're just spewing stuff at them. But if you're listening, and I come from an acting background, so that's really
Law and Order.
Law and Order, SVU. And but that's really, that's how I define charm, is really just listening to people and having a little empathy for what they're going through. These are big life choices, big purchases that people are walking into your open house, or you're having appointments with them, and they're big decisions. So you can't just walk around saying, here we are, and this is, it's got a roof deck, and what else do you want to know?
However, I 1,000% agree with you, okay? Because I've always said in many topics of conversation on this program, part of our skill as agents, or want to be a successful agent, has to be our listening skill above everything else. So I agree with that. However, we do bump into many more agents who, whether they're listening or not, just don't have that kind of personality, for lack of a better word, to make people feel more at ease. Because I also think, aside from listening skills, you got to make people feel comfortable, and you got to make people feel at ease. As you said, this is probably the biggest investment of their lifetime at that point, maybe forever. Yeah. So they want to feel comfortable in that what they can do is going to make sense for them. Jessica, when you're dealing with buyers, particularly, we'll talk about sellers in a minute. When you're dealing with buyers and they're hesitant to kind of pull the trigger, okay, or they're questioning all kinds of things because maybe the price is too high, or the maintenance is too high, or I don't really know, do I really want to do this right now? How do you use your charm and charisma to make them understand that this is not going to be the worst decision of their life, probably is going to be the best decision of their life? How do you do that effectively?
Effectively.
Well, we all do it, but I mean...
when I find that when people come up with a lot of objections, and it's price, and it's this, and it's that, there's usually some kind of an underlying hesitation, and you really have to narrow it down to find out what that true objection is. And sometimes that's by just narrowing it down to say, if this was this, if the maintenance was better, is this something you would consider? If the price was better, and figure out, no, it's not. Then they come out, and eventually, if you talk to them and you listen to them long enough, you do figure out what that real objection is. And I would say in a lot of cases, it is just that hesitation to pull the trigger.
Right. As I've said for years on this program, buyers really don't want to buy. They know they want to, they should. Everybody else is. It's a great investment. My dad says, buy a piece of the rock, blah, blah. But they really don't want to buy. Okay, no one wants to spend this kind of money. So they force themselves to do that, right? Especially in New York City. We're talking about New York City, all right, where prices are.
These are emotional.
Very emotional. Very,
very
emotional. So when you need to get the emotion out of it, you got to kind of snap in, your charm and charisma. Patrick, what about people who are more shy? They may listen well, they may keep the emotions down, they may work well with buyers, but they're kind of on the shy side, and they really don't have that really talkative, personality. I mean, you can't shut me up sometimes, but that's not typical of most agents out there, okay? What is that about?
Well, first of all, it's so nice to be back here with you. Thanks again.
Same here.
For the invite. Are you asking the shy agent or
shy agent?
Yeah, shy agents. I think it's all that really matters is that you're connecting with your client. Mm-hmm. And we all have our own personalities. We all have our own style, and we tend to work with clients where we match each other's vibe. We match each other's mood. So if you're an introvert or a bit of a shy agent, you're probably working with more introverted, shy customers. I think the only thing that matters is being good at what you're being good at your job, showing them on the buy side, showing them everything that's available, even if it's in a different neighborhood, a different borough, giving them as much information as possible so they can make an educated decision. And hopefully, along the way, you're connecting with them, even if it's not through small talk and even if there's no conversation going on, you can still connect, you can still work hard, and you can still find what your buyer.
I agree with that because I like to say also, and no offense meant, buyers can be temperamental and buyers can be emotional, as Mark said before. So you've got to find that vibe, as you call it, to kind of meet them more than halfway. I think to get them to understand. More importantly, in this business, get them to trust you, that you're going 100%. To keep their best interest at heart, and that you're going to show them the right way to be successful in a transaction. John Hudak, so I consider you a very charming person with charisma. How do you contribute that to a real estate's ability to win more business? Okay, the wet noodle, for example, may have a conversation with a seller, and you may come in and have a conversation with the same seller, and the seller sits back and says, not him, okay, you. How does a good charm and charisma help you win, or any agent win, more business?
I think for me specifically, just me being authentic and me being upfront with them on understanding where the market is, what they're looking for exactly. I think so many of us, even when I first started, you felt the pressure. You wanted to sell stuff. You wanted to act quickly. So you kind of pressured yourself and pressured other people, and that doesn't get you far at all. So now it's more about being authentic and being your normal self and just being trustworthy and understanding where people are at in their lives, and that's gotten me a lot of repeat business. And I've been working with some buyers I met 3-4 years ago.
Yep.
And now they're finally transacting because I'm authentic. I actually care about them as an individual and not just about the check at the end of the day.
That's a very interesting word, authentic, and I also add to that transparency. Okay, if you can't be authentic, if you can't be transparent, you're not going to gain that trust that's needed. Right. Charisma is one thing, charm is another thing. We can all be charming, but we could also be full of shit, okay? Yeah. So we've got to understand that you've got to be authentic, you've got to be transparent. People who are spending the kind of money that we're asking them to spend want to know, what's my level of comfort here, and how can I feel comfortable in proceeding through this transaction? Yeah. Because, quite frankly, you go up to the suburbs, and we talked about it on the show that we just taped earlier today. The suburbs, you can buy a $600,000 or $700,000 home. Here it's going to cost you $1.5 million, $1.7 million. Okay, so people always have that option. But we all know, as New Yorkers, we want to be here. We need to be here. There's no other place, in my opinion, on the planet like New York City. Yeah. Okay, the greatest metropolis in the world. So we put up with more than maybe anybody else would. I mean, my siblings look at prices that I talk about, and they're like, "Really? Who would spend that?"
Yeah. It's true. I want to also add something to
my question. My response is, who wouldn't?
Who wouldn't?
Right? Why not?
So I want to add something to what John said, where he said that we all work with buyers who take a little bit longer, and I think it's important for them to not feel like we're just in it for the paycheck. Right. That we're patient with them. I had a buyer that I worked with for a really long time. I met them in 2014, and we didn't close on something until 2 years ago. And that's
a long time.
It's a lot of patience, but it's also understanding where they're coming from and giving them the mental room to be able to make that decision and be ready for it.
Right. In 10 years, I'm thinking about how many martinis I might have had.
It's a lot of
over
martinis.
A 10-year period.
It definitely is.
Yeah. That's a lot of martinis.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a lot of phone calls to John.
And a lot of phone calls, and a lot of patience on your end. I mean, I commend you for 10 years. Okay, I thought 8 or 9 year, 2 years is a lot. Wow, 10 years. Okay, I get it. Wow. All right,
I just want to say, the one thing that you said about matching, and you sort of sometimes tend to work towards work towards
slide it over, mister.
Work towards work with people that you sort of have an akin to. But there are times when that doesn't happen, and you have to sort of match what they're bringing to the table.
Yeah.
One of the things, I always go back to my acting days and acting school, because you used to do those exercises in the mirror when you'd see the other person and you'd sort of follow them and they'd follow you and you'd
make Google eyes in the mirror if it's a romantic scene.
But that's exactly, when I used to work at Crunch, as you know, and selling memberships, and people would come in.
You sold me mine.
They sold you yours, and they would be very emotional about it.
You're too funny.
Very emotional
Yes,
sale.
it is.
They're trying to lose weight or whatever they're going to do to change, and
Get
you had
big.
to be that person, that tough guy, or that each time. So it was a great training ground to do that. And then when people come in and they are shy, you can't just be that, hey, come on, let's go. You have to match the person that you're with, and that gives them more comfort and help in their purchase.
Well, but you also have a tremendous personality. I mean, he does. I've known him for how many years? 22 years? Very long time. No, you've got a great personality, and I don't know anybody who's ever met you who doesn't say, yeah, he's cool, or yeah, he's great. No, I'm saying that for a reason, because I think what your commentary is correct. I think you need to show this to people that, hey, man, I'm just selling memberships at a gym, or hey, I'm selling, an apartment that happens to be $2 million. But guess what? I have your best interest.
Right.
Okay, and I'm going to make sure
It's
that you're
more
doing the
about
right thing.
disconnection than what you're selling.
The relationship.
A lot of the time.
Relationship.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with what you're selling sometimes. And I've tried to teach this throughout the years. I was a sales manager at Crunch for a long time, and I would go to Atlanta and Boston, and I thought, I could teach these guys how to be charming.
The wet noodles.
You can't.
You can't.
Sometimes you just can't teach it. Either have it or they don't.
This is the point of this. I was going to say class today. This is the point of this session today. Sometimes you can't, okay? Because if you're a wet noodle, you're a wet noodle. It is what it is.
Not to say that they're not going to be successful.
Oh, they are.
I know some very big wet noodles that are very good at business.
Yes.
And they know how to do it. But
I'm not going to name them, but I can come up with 20 names. 1, 2, 3. Boop. In a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat.
And they're not
okay.
on the show.
And they're not on the show. Some of them have been. No. They have not been on the show. No. They have not been on the show. But no, it's true. And back to one of you guys said before, the listening is really the most important thing, I believe. Keeping the emotion at bay and just making the environment, look, especially, and we're going to talk about this after the break, the environment today is kind of lopsided, when it comes to what business is or should be or what it, needs to get to again. And people, I think, are reaching out to us more than ever before to show them or guide them in the right direction. And I think that really is, I say when I'm teaching continuing ed, we're advisors more than we are, I hate the term real estate agent because that's transactional, okay?
Exactly.
We're advisors. And if someone can't, we're the bartender, we're the psychologist, we're the doctor, we're the the back rubber when we need, we're all of the above, okay?
Babysitter.
Babysitter,
Handholder.
Correct. Anyway, so much more to go. We are coming right back. Nobody's going anywhere. This is Talking New York Real Estate.
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business. And it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.
Okay, so we're back. Now, I want to talk a little bit about everything, we set up everything about charm and charisma, whatever, before the break. What techniques and strategies do you all use to kind of, when you wake up in the morning, in our business, every day is a different day, okay? Every day is 2 different days sometimes. But what techniques and strategies do you use to successfully employ or enhance the skill that you have over the wet noodle? And I hate to keep using that term, but the people who aren't charismatic. So Patrick, what strategies do you use or deploy on a daily basis to get you out there, get you ready, to get you, make you more successful?
Sure. So it's been mentioned already, but I think one of the biggest tools we can use as any salesperson or advisor is to, I think most important is to choose your own mood, even when you're not in the mood. Choose your own mood, and then again, match the mood of the person you're working with, to make them feel, all these things have been already touched upon, but to make them feel comfortable with you, to make them trust you, and for them to understand that you have their best interests at heart. During the pandemic, I read a lot of crazy books that I wouldn't normally have read, and one was How to Talk to Anyone. And one of the first things this I forget the author's name, but she writes is there's two types of people in the world. One who walks into a room and says, "Here I am," and the other who walks into the room and says, "There you are." And I think if you focus on the latter, especially in sales, you can really succeed. You can really connect.
I agree.
And especially those are techniques that especially can work when you're exhausted, when you've lost 10 deals in 1 week and you just burned out. You choose your mood, match their mood, and focus on them.
Okay, I totally agree with that. But let's use the example of, and we look, as many wet noodles on the real estate agent side, advisor side as there are out there, clients are the same way. Mm-hmm. Not every client is easy to deal with. Not every client is nice. Not every client, and to their credit, they're busy. Everybody in New York City is so busy, and I always say, busy doing what? Okay, I'm busy, busy, busy. Okay, so am I. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you oftentimes, John, run into buyers or sellers who are not necessarily as nice or as easygoing or as authentic, or I like to use the word genuine maybe, as you are, or all of you are. How do you deal with that when you know from the jump you're going to have somebody who is just difficult to deal with?
I think you have to know it's not personal. It's a business transaction for them in many regards. So, I try my best to not let my emotions get a hold of anything. I kind of adapt to where they are in their process and understanding. And there's a difference of whether you're respectful or disrespectful. That's a very different thing. But you just have to learn that they're going probably through. It could be something in their lives that is a situation that they're trying to deal with. So they're not personally frustrated with you necessarily. It's just could be something within their lives necessarily. And you just have to adapt and understand that, right, and respect that.
Right. Most of the time it is in their life. It isn't, or it shouldn't be taken personally, because it really isn't necessarily. I mean, there are some people out there who are especially more difficult than others.
Sure.
But Jessica, when it comes to effectively communicating with people, and again, based on people's personalities, based on people's having a tough day, having a tough, family situation, whatever, we have to still communicate, and we still have to be authentic, and we still have to be genuine. Do you find yourself sometimes in the position of being, well, I'm going to give you who I am, whether you accept it or not. I'm hoping that you're going to accept it. And so what kind of reaction do you get when you do that, when they're kind of like a little crusty and you don't really know where they're coming from or what they're about to say, etc.?
Well, I find sometimes that finding some kind of...
Because communication is key.
Yes, it is. And I try to bond with people initially through something in common that makes them feel at ease, that, hey, we're not total strangers, we might have a connection. It seems to work really well when you find something. Do you live in the neighborhood? Where are you from? That type of a thing when they're looking at an apartment, when you first meet somebody, just trying to understand them a little bit better. And I mean, I am a lively person myself, so I can't.
You are?
A little bit, yes, a little bit.
Post-coffee.
Just a little bit?
As long as I've had my coffee. So in answer to your first question, I start my day with coffee, and that makes everything better for everyone around me. And then, when if I have somebody coming in and I find that they have a very, very flat energy, I will try to draw them out. But if I find that they're not really responding to that, then you got the message. They're not interested in engaging as much. And you let them go a little bit, and you let them come to you without making them feel like they're pressured into matching your energy. You kind of tone it back a little bit to match theirs.
Flat energy, that's an interesting term. I like that. I'm going to steal that.
Oh, no more
Mark. Well, I'm going to keep that one too. But Mark, so flat energy, again, you don't know somebody has just referred to you, or you're going to talk to a seller about a listing appointment, blah, blah. You don't really know who they are really. Yeah. And as Jess just said, a little bit on a flat side from an energy perspective or a personality perspective. What does Mark Friedman do?
Well, there's, listen, I'm a half glass full guy.
Yes.
So I always come in with the energy, and if I'm not seeing it from the other side, I have to find out what's going on. There's got to be something going on in their life that's making them either worried or upset, and it may not be the sale, it may not be the buying of this property. There could be something in their life, and you have to have empathy. I think if you have empathy for the person that you're dealing with, and you can connect with that person, then there's a little bit more give and take, and you can really sort of draw that person out of what they're going through. And like you said, we're all psychiatrists and psychologists, we're bartenders, we're everything to these people. And you have to have the empathy to listen to what they're going through. If you're just going to show them the property and not connect with them, you're never gonna get anywhere.
It's definitely a connection. I mean, I remember, and I've said this before on the show, I started my career at IBM, and I was a salesperson, and I sold $9 million mainframes and $12 million mainframes and on and on and on and on, okay? And I thought that customer was difficult, okay? And they were corporate, CEOs and CFOs signing checks. That's how difficult, they thought they were, or important they thought they were. But when I left that, and that was a struggle,
Right.
having to justify rather the cost or the need for the cost of those systems. But having left that and then coming into real estate, it's a whole different perspective. The buyer is a whole different person. Yeah. You need to find that empathy. You need to lock into. They're a whole person because it's their money.
Yeah,
they're spending their money. The corporate CEO or corporate CFO was spending corporate dollars. Yeah, they were charged with cutting costs and all that good stuff. But you know what? You couldn't do without a computer system. Okay, you needed a computer system to run your business. So, I realized very quickly that, okay, so I need to change my game. I need to become more empathetic. I think I'm more of a genuine person than the next person is anyway. But, you put all of these skills together, that's what makes success.
Yeah.
Patrick, can you share, some success stories whereby you've used these skills with maybe difficult buyers or sellers, or even difficult agents that you need to do a transaction with, and how you've turned that into, from starting off very rocky to turning it into a success story?
Sure.
I mean, we all have those stories, but if you can give us an example or two, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, we've all worked with nightmare co-broke or fellow agents, and I think the most important
wet noodles,
or just
just bad brokers.
Some bad brokers,
some who are super successful yet still are jerks. I also see with a lot of younger agents who think that unless they're fighting with their co-broke, they're not serving their client.
The TikTok generation?
Clearly, we all know that that's like the worst thing you can do.
Sorry.
There's nothing wrong with TikTok or that generation. But I think they are learning slowly that, the best thing you can do is treat your co-broker or your colleague as a friend.
Correct.
As your client. So when it comes to other agents that are giving you a hard time, just kill them with kindness. Stay professional. Do not let them show that they're bitter or their bad personality is affecting you. Stay professional. Do what you're meant to do. Keep your fiduciary with your own client, but also keep the communication open with that other agent. And most likely they'll come around and hopefully realize
Sometimes.
But it happens, and that's all you can do. When it comes to clients, sellers, or buyers, I mean, I think we've all had sellers, especially that are become borderline abusive, and they blame everything on you. Doesn't matter the market condition. Doesn't matter if they decided not to paint their apartment or stage their apartment. Everything comes back to you. And it's
my shoulders got bigger in 22 years.
For sure. And it's the same thing. You just stay the course, be professional, breathe, take deep breaths in front of them, and just show them that you are the professional that they hired. They're allowed to be upset. They're allowed to be stressed. But that's why we have jobs, because we know how to deal with difficult people. And when you close that apartment, they're going to look at you and say, "Thank you for putting up with all my BS."
Sometimes.
Yeah. I think more than often.
I want to talk about intelligence, and the reason I bring this up is because I think and I'm not suggesting that people who are not so nice aren't intelligent, but I find sometimes that emotional intelligence look, in the acting business, okay, and Mark, you can relate to this, actors who really make it and do well, in my opinion, because I kind of dabbled with that a long time ago as well, they're smarter than the next, okay? It's just the way it is, okay? And you
very
can
well-rounded.
Very well-rounded, intelligent, above the rest of the masses out there. I think this business is very akin to show business, okay? And I've been saying that all the years that I'm in this, okay?
I absolutely agree with that.
We are on spotlight every time you turn around in this business, right? Mm-hmm. Out on the street.
And now more and more with TikTok.
And now more and more with all of social media. And now more and more with podcasts. Yep. But, John, I wanted to ask about emotional intelligence, okay? How does it play in an agent, kind of forming, their strategy, their charisma, their charm that needs to be used, hate to use the word used, but deployed, actually, whatever, on a daily basis, with whether you're talking to a buyer, a renter, a landlord, a seller, what kind of emotional intelligence goes into that when, as we talked about before, some of these people could be downright nasty or not nice, and you don't really, really want to deal with that. It kind of plays, I think you mentioned before emotion, it kind of plays on your emotions, but yet you've got to snap to it and stand up to it and make it work to make that transaction be successful.
Right. I think ultimately they're hiring us to do the job, whether it's to sell their place, to find a home for, whether it's their kids, their family, themselves. So they're hiring us, and it's a very emotional process, and you have to be very diligent on filtering that tough conversations, their feelings of whether it's stressful going on, and you have to really be good at understanding it's not to you. They're not translating that to you specifically. So you have to have a really good mind of just adapting to every situation. Some situations are super simple. Some are more complicated, and you just have to really understand and listen exactly why they are upset, and be really smart and learn from every experience. That's the best thing I could say is I learned from every good, every bad experience, and then utilize that towards the next.
And that's why I call it emotional experience, because you have to intellectually understand who you're dealing with, what you're dealing with, what I learned in IBM training, you got to always be able to manage the objections, because somebody's always going to say, oh, it's too expensive, oh, I don't want it, oh, that's not the system we really need. We trained for a year on how to handle objections, okay? Quite frankly, in this business, we get tossed out all the time. We lose probably more than we win, and that's either on the sales side or on the buy side. Buyers and sellers, don't really think about that, don't really pay attention to that. Oh, I'm going to call John, oh, I'm going to call Mark, whatever. But they don't really necessarily understand that. Jessica, you mentioned before working 10 years with somebody. God bless you. When you want to talk about emotional intelligence, all right, how do you maintain that over a 10-year period? I mean, I think the longest I worked with somebody was 2 years, and I thought that was enough to put me out of the business. I couldn't even imagine what that was about. And that was way back, okay? And not to say that all of my deals are easy, because they're not. 10 years?
Well, it was 10 years because it was but it wasn't consistently. We weren't looking every single day.
Right.
We weren't looking every single month.
Right, but they're always on the mind.
Always on the mind, but actually, and I have somebody else that I have been in contact with. What year are we in now? For 8 years. So we're trending towards 10 years on this one.
You are long term.
I am long term.
She's committed.
I am definitely committed, or I should be committed. But that too. But
you are committed, honey. That's commitment.
So in this, I'm going to actually use the example of this other person that I've been working with for 8 years. We are not always looking, and we are not always showing her stuff. But I always have her at the top of mind to say, "Hey, this might work for you." But we also have developed a little bit more of an outside of the office relationship too. So it really becomes more of a partnership, so to speak, which is what it really should be anyway, right? And so she knows, she even apologized to me. I'm sorry for doing this. I'm like, this is why I'm here. I'm here to work with you, to help you, but
I find myself saying that several times a week. This is why I'm here. Don't worry about it.
Exactly.
You're not, I don't want to, waste your time. You're not wasting my time. This is what I do.
100%.
Right?
Yep.
Yes. And I actually do appreciate people who say, I'm sorry for taking up your time. And my answer is always the same.
Right.
I mean, sometimes
It's
I'll
my
say
job.
you are, but mostly it is because that's what we're here to do, is to work with these people. And it goes back to what I said before. If you make somebody think that you're only in it for that commission and that paycheck, you're going to lose them. And even if you do win with them, you're not going to get referrals or repeat business from that.
That's a completely lost cause if you only focus on the commission.
Yeah.
And just think about
then you're a transactional agent and you're not an advisor.
Right. But if you're working with that person for 10 years, there's a good chance that they're also going to, over that 10-year period, refer you to other people because
which has happened, yes.
Yeah, you maintain that relationship and that loyalty.
Yeah. So I think there's an overlying thing here, or underlying. I don't know what the right one is. Somebody taught me this a long time ago. You can't. Wait, let me think about this for a second. You can't change somebody. You can only change how you react to them.
Exactly.
And
100%.
it's something that I really try to work with because it's true.
Mm-hmm.
You can't force somebody to be nice. You can't force somebody to buy an apartment.
Especially in the city, for sure.
Exactly. I mean, it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to put up with somebody being abusive. I have said to people, we're not going to have
absolutely
this conversation if you're going to continue to yell at me.
Absolutely.
But
I think we've all had these dealings where you actually fired your
ironically, it's
buyer or
actually
seller.
been where it's actually been co-brokes where people have yelled at me more than anything else, and that's something that does not go over well.
The wet noodle.
The abusive wet noodle.
The abusive wet noodle, which is almost an oxymoron. But
Well, and that's why I say sometimes when you're talking about emotional intelligence, as it relates to charisma and as it relates to charm, not accusing anybody of not being intelligent, but they clearly don't have charm and they don't have any charisma when they do things like that. Everybody gets heated, everybody gets hot in a deal. I mean, I get it, but I can probably count less than one hand how many times I've actually yelled at a co-broker, and it probably is because they were stupid and they did do something bizarre. Mm-hmm. Normally it's kind of like, all right, just calm down, relax, we'll work it out, talk it out, figure it out. When we come back from break, we're going to talk about, there aren't really any formal training programs for agents out there. So where do you get your charm and charisma? How do you figure it out? And how do you make it work for you? We're coming right back after these messages. Don't go anywhere.
my phone has been blowing.
All right, as I said before the break, there really aren't any formal training programs or resources available for real estate agents. I mean, it's easy to become an agent. You go to real estate school, you do it used to be 45 hours, now it's 77 hours, okay? But it's book stuff, all right? You come out of book training just like college. You come out of college, what the hell do you really know anyway, right? Yeah. You know what you learn in books, period. You had, day-to-day, feet on the street, on-the-job training, as we used to call it. That's where you learn your profession. That's where you learn how to do what you need to do successfully, okay? I come out of college and I go to work at IBM. What the hell did I know about anything, right? 22 years old, 23 years old. It's like, oh, okay. Oh, it's a great company. My dad said, you got a pension. That's great.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Retirement, Whatever. I get a pension from them. Yes, I do. Not a big one because I wasn't there that long, but I get one. I was frozen. Anyway, but the point is you can go to school and learn the book stuff, okay? You can learn how to be an agent. You can't learn how to be charming. You can't learn how to be a person that's got charisma, the emotional intelligence that we keep talking about. So how, where do you find this stuff to enhance these skills that, in my opinion, are really absolutely necessary?
Well, a lot of people go to Dale Carnegie, I'm told.
Yeah.
They go to these,
there
are like these, places you can go and they try to teach you how to
I was bored.
relate.
But I was bored at Dale Carnegie.
My Crunch actually sent me to Dale Carnegie, and after the end
you
of
don't
the 3
need
days,
Dale Carnegie.
They asked me to teach. So I said, why didn't you send me to this? They're asking me to teach at Dale Carnegie now. So, listen.
They clearly didn't know what they were doing.
They didn't know what they were doing, but they paid for it, so I was happy.
Yeah, of course.
It was 3 days off. But, the thing is that you really have to experience a lot of these things and all these events that go on in your life, and that's what you're bringing to the table when you're talking to people and you say the intelligence of what's going on. But to teach charm or to teach, it's hard. And there really aren't any schools. The only thing is acting. It really is. That's the only thing I can think of, because I did a lot of improv, and that improv, when you say yes to everything and then, that really helps you in a lot of situations.
I agree. I did the same.
It doesn't mean that you have to say, what's the sublet policy, and then you make it up. That's not improv. That's just lying. But, and
there's a lot of that going on.
There's a lot of that. But you have to improv when you're talking to people, and that really helps in the situation to be a little bit more charming because you're sort of playing with them.
Yep. I remember that. I took a lot of those classes too, and I really do believe that has a lot to do with the type of personality I turned out to be not only just talking to people, but even just understanding what you might be getting back from somebody else or just a situation. Yeah. Because, I mean, honestly, life is really improv. Yeah. Okay? We don't know everything.
One of my favorite improv teachers, Paul Sills, who has started Chicago City.
Absolutely.
He would walk around and he would say, just walk around and feel your feet. And really he just meant be grounded.
Right.
So grounded in yourself and what you know and who you are. Yeah. And that you can bring to the table. And if you have that and you're not sort of floating around doing something stupid, then you'll be a lot better.
Grounded. Feel your feet. That's another one I'm stealing. I like that line. You wanted to say something?
I don't remember. I think that the hardest thing about this is I don't think you can really teach charm. You can't teach somebody to be a nice person. You can't teach somebody to actually be.
We don't want phonies.
No,
we want genuine people.
You want it to come from you. You want it to be genuine to you, going back to your authenticity. Unfortunately, some people are authentically not charming, and we deal with that. But I also came from
Nicely said.
Nicely said, yeah.
And the coffee's kicking in. I came from another sales background as well. I was in ad sales for a long time, and we used to go through professional selling skills.
That's very hard.
Yeah. It was fun. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
so it was
but
good
it's hard
to be in for a long time. Yes, it was hard, but we would go through selling skills training. And then you'd have to learn how to apply that on a daily basis. Close probes, open probes, all of those techniques that go into that. But you still have to bring your own personality into it. And one thing I've always taken a lot of pride in myself is I don't play games. I'm not phony with people. I am who I am. This is me. And, it works. I mean, people have always said that they like the fact that I'm a little bit more open with people and me.
You are, and that's one of the reasons I love you. But the bottom line is, John said it well before when he said authenticity, and then I added transparency, because I think that people are looking for people they can trust, but people that they know are real. See, my whole thing with, and by the way, the reason for this whole topic today is because whether you're a buyer, a seller, a landlord, a tenant, whatever, future customer in real estate, or just in life, it's important to be who you are. I like what you said, Mark, about being well-grounded, feet on the ground, understand who you are. A lot of the problem I think we have in our society in general, whether you're in the industry of real estate or not, is people don't really know who they are. They think they do, they want to be, or they're trying to be, but they don't really know, I mean, from a grounding perspective, they don't really know who they are and how that needs to translate into success. And I always say success is going to follow you if you walk that path and set the groundwork. Okay, it's not going to just fall down. You're not going to win the $50 million lottery overnight, right? You got to set the groundwork, buy a ticket. Maybe you will win at some point, right? So that's all very important for, grounding yourself, putting yourself out there authentically, understanding how, you need to charm people. You need to have that personality and charisma. I like personality better than charisma, to really make people want to talk to you or be with you. I try in my daily life with almost everybody I meet to walk away from, whether it's a brief encounter or a long encounter, whatever it is, to have them walk away saying, well, he's cool, or he's a nice guy. I just want to hear, not to me, but in their mind, he's a nice guy, versus what the hell was that about? Right? And a lot of us say that on a regular basis. What the hell was that about? Okay, because, really? I don't get it.
And I think the one thing that we're not mentioning about all of this is, yes, you can be grounded. Yes, you can have charisma, smile, and authentic. But that can all be ruined with one thing. That's with an ego. If you walk into a room, especially in this industry.
My next question.
Whether it's I'm sorry.
No. Go.
But yeah, if it's from broker to broker or to your client, if you're more attached to your ego than anything we just mentioned, then it's not going to go well. And to your point, Vince, those people who don't know who they are usually insert their ego to project something that doesn't make
because they're
sense.
pretending to be somebody they're not, or they want to be and they don't know how to get there. So what is ego? Ego is fear. Okay, ego, you put ego out, and I teach this in class. Ego is fear. Okay, I don't know how to deal with this. I don't want to deal with this. I can't even believe that person said that to me. So boom, I'm going to put my big, larger than life ego out there, and that's going to keep me comfortable.
And how productive is that to getting a sale,
a
transaction done?
Well, it's not, and it's also not productive with the co-broke community that we need to deal with. So, John, how do you deal with when you get ego back? You know, whether they're a nice person or not, you know, that ego, as I like to call it, is fear-based. Right. How do you deal with that? How do you kind of counter that in order to keep your deal on track, in order to keep your client, whoever they are,
right,
walking, you know, the right path to success? How do you deal with the ego that literally blocks you?
Yeah, I think for me, I don't let it get to me. I just, you know, we're both on a mission to get the deal done for whether it's a buyer or seller, and I just stick to the facts. And I don't try to like stray off of their ego or their aggression or their frustration or fear. I just stick to the facts. Like, look, we're both trying to get this deal done together for our respective clients, and you just try to narrow in on that and not let them go too off keel or off wire.
I agree. So, Mark, you know, but ego is an interesting thing. Okay, in our industry and our business, I have to say,
yeah,
you see more of it than you don't, and it's not always a good ego. Okay, I mean, we all have ego. Okay, and I think to be a healthy individual in our world today, you need to have a little bit of an ego. But when it gets to the point where it precedes you, you know, or it becomes, you know, who you are falsely, you know, we have to deal with that on a regular basis with people. How do you do that?
Well, I think sometimes
that interferes with the charm and the charisma and the personality.
It does, and sometimes you have to stick to the script. You have to go back to what you know and that you want to get the deal done for your client. So you have to take your ego out of it because you're working for somebody else.
Right.
And you don't want to put yourself out there saying, this guy's being to me, and I'm going to go right back at them. Can't do that.
No.
Not in this business.
No.
So you have to stick to the script, say, listen, we just want to get this deal done.
Right.
Let's talk about it. I know the buyer's supposed to, the package says the buyer's paying the flip. I know it's a problem, but let's just talk, you know? So that's really, I think you have to go back to the script and go back to what you know and take your ego out of it. And hopefully in doing so, they will in turn take their ego out of it as well.
I think ego interferes with effective communication.
Yeah, totally.
Because if you're going to put that, it adds to the stress. But if you put that here, you know, how are you going to communicate, whether it's a co-broke or a buyer or a seller, whomever your client is? I mean, get it out of there and address it.
It doesn't help anybody.
It doesn't help anybody.
It doesn't help your buyer, your seller. It doesn't help you.
No.
And if the other person's got the ego on the other side, you know, you have to figure out a way to deal with it.
We talk about emotions at this table today, and this is, I was in corporate America where, you know, big shot, you know, people spent millions and zillions of dollars on technology, okay? And I loved every minute of it because I was selling it to them.
Right.
But this is a whole different thing. Whether you're spending $1 million on an apartment, $800,000 on an apartment, or $50 million, which we see in our industry.
It's their biggest deal.
It's their biggest deal. It's filled with emotion. And the last thing I believe they want to see is an agent who, or an advisor rather, who has this ego or this block that really kind of translates to transaction.
Yeah.
You got to get it done. You got to get it done. You got to get it done. Why?
I've had people come to me or friends. They see me posting a big listing, a $6 million listing or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they go, you only do those big listings.
Right.
No.
Right.
I sell $400,000 studios as well. I have no ego in the fact that I'm only going to sell this.
Right.
We sell everything.
Well, we see that on social media, which is our next conversation.
That's
all they want to talk
problem.
about is the luxury market. It's like
Right.
luxury this, okay?
And it's the $400,000 is a luxury for somebody.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's a lot of money to spend on a studio or a one bed, maybe a studio.
I was going to say, not a one bedroom.
Not a one bedroom. Not anymore.
Not a one bedroom.
Not anymore.
No.
But it's all of these are big transactions,
Yeah.
and you have to come into it giving your 100%, whether it's a $400,000 studio or a $6 million
100%.
property. It's all the same.
And that $400,000 studio is sometimes harder to do than
Sometimes
a $6 million
it's
property.
it's always hard.
Right.
Always
That's a
harder.
financing
There's always
discount,
hair on the
yes.
thing.
Always
always
much
something.
harder,
Yes.
absolutely. And the emotions, you want to talk about emotions, oh my God. It is what it is. That's why we all look so wonderful. All right, we got a few minutes left. Let's talk about social media because I can't end any of my shows these days without really talking about social media because I think social media not only has changed the world, okay, but it's changed our industry. And sometimes I wonder if it's changing it in ways that are better for us or not. I mean, and not to beat on TikTok, but you see some of these things on TikTok. You see some of these things on Instagram. a little bit, not too much on Facebook, but you see a lot of real estate stuff. It's like, look at me, look at me, look at me. I only sell $50 million apartments. I only do luxury. It's like, who cares? Yeah. Okay? You're not endearing yourself to anybody out there because there are less people buying $50 million apartments than there are people buying $1 million, $2 million, $1.5 million. Okay? So get with the program. Okay? Yeah. Why is this happening, Patrick? I mean, what
well,
you want to talk? No, hold on. You want to talk about, and I'm not suggesting he does, not at all.
Doing that, Patrick?
But that's ego to me. Okay?
I agree. Yeah, it's exactly to the last point of our last conversation here. I think it goes back to a lot of the TikTok generation. And there's plenty of wonderful.
Like TikTok walk the earth long enough and understand.
Yeah, well, they get into the industry and they think that they can conquer the universe by being that flashy, fabulous agent without even doing their homework, without even like knowing how to do a board package or like how to
wanting to do a board package
or screen a buyer
or screen a buyer.
Right,
they think that it's 100% presentation on social media, and to their point, they have. Yeah. They're definitely going to, if they're committed and they stick to it long enough, which is also another problem with people who enter the industry, is they usually don't stick to it long enough.
They don't.
But if they stick with it and, are authentic and show that they are credible, they can do well. But if it's all about them being flashy ego and they're just showing fancy apartments that they know nothing about, then it may work against them.
And I don't wish that it does. I mean, I believe everybody deserves to be as successful, and if that's their chosen way to try and find success, that's great. But I do think, though, that we are overdoing it. And I know everybody says, social media helps you get clients and stuff. Yes, sometimes not. I wonder where the threshold is. I guess that's the question I'm asking all of you. Is there a threshold where people say, enough?
I think those.
Okay, enough. If I sign on to my news feed, all I see is real estate after real estate after real estate after. It's like, okay.
Those who do really well are the ones who I think sprinkle it in. That yes, they post this beautiful picture of this listing or this beautiful home with this buyer.
Talk about the neighborhood. Show a building. I'd rather see that.
Or that you're with your family on the weekend, or you go to theater with friends, or you go to this charity event.
I want to know who you are.
100%.
Yes.
That's what. I think that's what buys a real estate advisor to a buyer or a seller. I mean, I've gone to many listing agreements meetings, and I've said this on the air many times here, where sellers used to say, "It looks like you have a great relationship with your dog," and I'd be like, "How did they know that? Yeah. Where did that come from?" Then I thought, social media.
Right.
God rest your soul, Jed. I miss you dearly, but it was true. People wanted to know who I was as a person, whether they had a pet or they didn't have a pet, right?
Right.
More so than this listing after this. All right, you're successful. I get it. No, not a problem. All right, so what? Yeah. Maybe, and I always think of the opposite, maybe you're too successful or too busy to handle my listing. We have sellers who are like that all the time. Yeah. You're way too busy to do that. Yeah. Social media, good for us or not? I don't want to put you on the spot, but generally speaking.
I think it's good. I think, when I first started, I had a business phone, then I had a personal phone. I wouldn't post anything personal on Instagram because I thought that they didn't want to see that. But the more I post about, I love traveling, I love fine dining, so I post those things, and a lot of my clients react, and that brings us closer. And we hang out on the weekends, and I think it's helpful.
It is.
But you have to be authentic with it and not fake.
Yeah. He likes that word authentic. I can't no, he's correct. He's 100% correct. I can't disagree with that.
Right, and I have people who say, "Oh, your business looks so good," but they know the other set. They react to the Park Avenue tulips or
that's fine.
Or something like that, and then they.
Where are the tulips? I don't see them yet.
They're gone.
They came and went and gone?
Yeah.
I missed them.
It was on my Instagram.
I saw that.
Liked the photo.
I did.
So, but people...
But I usually like them in person more, but I don't remember. I haven't been on Park Avenue.
And they'll say, "Oh, your business looks so good. I'm so glad to see that you're doing well." They see all of this kind of stuff, but you've got to make it personal. I'm excited that I closed on this. I'm thrilled for my buyers. I'm thrilled for...
100%.
Talk to people. Don't just slap a photo on there. And I'm going to say something that's probably going to get me a lot of feedback, but people do the weekly market reports every single week. And I feel like that is
It's too much.
redundant. And
It is.
I mean,
Good for certain-
it does work for
Yeah,
certain
but
people, so
it's-
maybe I shouldn't criticize it.
No,
It
no,
wouldn't
no.
work for me.
I agree with that. I've done
But-
it, and I'm kind of pulling back on that. I
Yeah.
don't do it every week because I think people are like, I send it in an e-blast to my clients.
Okay.
They can delete that if they want,
Correct.
or they can
Right.
read it if they want.
Right.
But when I send it an email, I get a lot of response,
It is interesting to see when
depending
you
on
do
what the
it.
numbers are,
Sure.
thanks to
Yeah.
our
Right,
chief
but you can
economist.
also do post if you're posting it on a story.
Yeah.
You can see the engagement. I have a business account rather than personal for Instagram, so I'm public, and I can see
Right.
the engagement.
And
so
it's
you
not a
can
lot.
tell if you're heading in the right direction.
If you make
and
it
it's
interesting,
not.
though, if you
Yeah.
tell, if you can share facts, you can share.
If you put
data.
something on top of
Yes.
just sending the report.
Exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
but again, you have to talk to people. Social media is just that. It is social.
Yeah.
So you really
It's about
have
connecting
to
with them.
connect with people.
Yeah.
Don't put a picture up there without and expect that people are gonna love it and say, "Oh my goodness, I have to buy that apartment." You got to give them something.
Yeah.
You've got to make it interesting to them or personal to them in some respect, and that's just talking and communicating, even on Instagram.
Well, there again, going back to what we discussed at this table this morning, it's communication skills. It's how you communicate, how you relate to people, not with that ego, with your genuine, authentic self, right?
Exactly.
Communicate, listen,
Yep.
as you say. Look, I've said for years, especially when I'm teaching, I never learned anything by talking too much. Okay, that's a lot for me, but I've never learned anything. Never learned anything by talking too much.
You're
Okay.
so smart.
But I learn from listening, okay? I don't learn from and the people
Yeah.
who go on and on and on, I'm like, okay, take a breath, okay?
Yeah.
Really? Take a breath?
I mean, Richard and I do a lot of videos for
Yes, you do.
Instagram, and
But
we
they're
do a lot of-
effective.
but
I've
we're-
seen
we,
your
we,
TikTok.
we show our
Yeah,
we
right.
show our personality, and that's really where I think that's the point of this whole
Yes.
thing is to
Right.
show who you are. So if somebody's watching and they
I
go,
can't
"Oh,
say
wanna
that
work
any
with
better."
those guys.
Yeah.
You know, we do a lot of restaurant reviews because we go out to eat a lot.
You know I'm looking at those,
Yeah,
okay?
exactly.
I like
New
those, and yours
restaurants.
also.
Yeah, and I know a lot of chefs, so I run a big event in July in the Hamptons for cancer research. And,
Yes, you do.
A lot of chefs come out, so I know a lot of these people. So that's what we do. You do what you know, right?
Oh my God! What a way to end. You do what you know. You do what you do well.
Yeah.
Don't try and be somebody else. Don't try and be that other
If you
character
try to
that
be
want to
somebody
be.
else, you're never going to get there.
Never.
People see through that too.
They do.
They totally see through that. And as you said before, feet on the ground that you learned in your early days of improv school or acting school.
Exactly.
Feet on the ground. This is me. This is who I am.
Yeah.
Okay? Quite frankly, the older I get, the wiser, the older you get wiser when you get older. Well, guess what, Dad? You were right. You were so right.
yeah.
But I like knowing who I am. I feel solid when I stand on the ground. I'm going to use that, Mark. I love that line. It's so true.
It is.
Right? You got to walk the earth long enough. That's why, again, no offense to the younger agents or the TikTokers or whatever. You got to walk the earth long enough to be credible.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says, okay? You can be successful, but I often say, how long is that going to last?
Right.
Anyway, on that note, we're coming back with my thoughts for the week. Jessica, John, Mark, Patrick. I'm not having a good day today.
More
Patrick,
coffee.
Mark, John, Jessica. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Okay, everybody, we're back with my closing thoughts for this week. Being charming in the context of real estate involves the art of building rapport, fostering trust, and creating positive connections with clients. A charming agent possesses the ability to engage with people authentically, demonstrating warmth, empathy, and professionalism. They listen attentively, communicate effectively, and exude confidence without being overbearing. On the contrary, being a wet noodle in real estate refers to a lackluster, uninspiring approach characterized by passivity, indecision, and a failure to leave a lasting impression. A wet noodle agent may struggle to connect with clients on a meaningful level, leading to missed opportunities and limited success in a competitive industry. While charm can open doors and facilitate business growth, not being charming can hinder progress and undermine one's potential. Therefore, mastering the art of charm while avoiding the pitfalls of being a wet noodle is crucial for real estate agents striving to thrive in this profession. And my guests today are all stars and are very charming, and I love them all, as I said before. And that's our broadcast for today. Thanks to my guests for being here on set with me. You can follow me on Facebook, on Threads, Instagram, LinkedIn, or TikTok at Vince Rocco, or my website, thinkvince.com. Norman Vincent Peale says, shoot for the moon, everyone. Even if you miss, you'll land among the stars. And from all of us here at Talking New York Real Estate and the More Network, to all of you all around the world, thanks for spending a part of your day with us, and I will see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.